Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
But let's get started with our conversations on CARICOM today. And joining us this morning as we talk about Cuba, its impact on Barbados and the region, and all of the activities that unfolded last week, is Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comissiong. Ambassador, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. Pleasure to be here.
Terrific Tuesday morning to you, sir. Let's talk about this because we had quite a moment in Barbados and the region last week when the President of Cuba visited the region. What do you see to have been the overall outcome of that particular visit?
Yes, it was quite a week. Last week, Monday, we had Barbados Cuba bilateral meeting. Tuesday, we had CARICOM Cuba Heads of Government Summit. Wednesday, we had the civil society colloquium at the University of the West Indies. So quite a week. In terms of Barbados, I would say that Barbadians can look forward to a number of concrete developmental initiatives. The Barbados-Cuba relationship has been deepened. There's several areas in which we are going to be collaborating with Cuba that's going to make a real difference to the lives of Barbadians. In fact, we are setting up a joint Barbados-Cuba task force to implement the projects agreed upon, and I have been asked to chair the Barbados side of that task force. So we could get into that, some of the specifics. In terms of CARICOM, it was more about reconfirming the relationship. It was about reconfirming a number of the projects that are in the train, for example, that are in train. For example, Cuba is helping CARICOM with the establishment of a center in Guyana for stimulating the development of young people and children who have special educational needs because of disability. So Cuba is helping us with that. We also recommitted to developing the Regional School of the Arts. That's supposed to be developed in Jamaica, where a lot of Cuban expertise in the arts, all the art forms, will be made available. Cuba recommitted to our reparations struggle, our reparations campaign. And CARICOM and Cuba, they look forward to a lot more collaboration in the health field. Cuba can provide a lot of training in specialties for nurses, for doctors, that we are maybe a bit short in. Also, Cuban medications. We're going to be making a lot more use of Cuban medications. And I should say Barbados in particular, because our Prime Minister was very quick to jump upon the fact that Cuba has developed this new cutting-edge medication to deal with diabetes, to prevent amputations as a result of diabetes. And Barbados is going to be immediately fast-tracking the bringing of that medication. And not just the medication, but Cuba has actually worked out special education programs for people with diabetes, special treatment kits. All of that Barbados is going to be accessing. So too CARICOM, but Barbados, very, very definite and concrete programs where Barbados is concerned. I think the big news, though, for CARICOM Cuba is that Cuba was invited to formally become part of the CARICOM Special Ministerial Committee on Agricultural Production and Food Security. This is the project that CARICOM has to reduce the regional food import bill by 25% by the year 2025. And the CARICOM Ministers of Agriculture are in a special committee overseeing that project. Well, Cuba was invited into that project where the Cuban Minister of Agriculture will sit with the CARICOM Ministers of Agriculture, and Cuba will become an integral part of that food production project. And Barbados is in the center of that project. We are about to build the food terminal at Lares that will be a hub for food production across the region. So those are just a few. We can delve more deeply, but I'll leave it there for opening statement.
Just a few. That sounds like quite a lot indeed from my standpoint. Let's look at the Barbados Task Force, for which you have some responsibility to begin to flesh out and to bring into fruition the agreements between Barbados and Cuba. I know we're going to be delving into setting up a pharmaceutical industry, working with them on a whole host of other things. What are some of the next steps now that we have this kind of an arrangement in place?
Well, I have to work very quickly on putting together the Barbados side of the task force. And the Barbados side of the task force will include our ambassador in Cuba, Philip St. Hill, but it will also include 2 representatives from each of the ministries that have concrete projects with Cuba. One of the first things we are likely to be doing is sending off a team from our Department of Emergency Management to Cuba early in 2023 to tap into Cuba's world-class expertise in dealing with disasters, particularly hurricanes. So we are anxious that we should access that expertise before the 2023 hurricane season starts. Barbados has also committed to a an artistic and cultural exchange program with Cuba, $1 million a year for the next 5 years to finance the exchange of artists, and especially young artists. So we are going to be seeing Barbadian artists going to Cuba, engaging in artistic collaborations with Cuban artists. This is going to be very exciting, and it's being financed out of the Sports and Arts Fund, $1 million every year for the next 5 years. Many years ago, I was involved with Joy Night in taking 65 young musicians from the Barbados National Youth Orchestra to spend a month in Cuba at the National School of Music, just training on their instruments, and the youth orchestra. The expertise, exploded. So I know what this will mean for the development of the arts in Barbados. Biotech, you hit the nail on the head. At the Barbados Cuba meeting, a memorandum of understanding was signed between Export Barbados and BioCuba Pharma. That is the big Cuban entity that deals with the whole biotechnology industry, medications, pharmaceuticals. Barbados is moving into biotechnology, pharmaceutical industry in a big way. We are developing a life sciences park at Newton, and Cuba is going to be a big part of that. So expect to see a lot of collaboration in helping Barbados to develop this new industry. Cuba is a world leader in this industry. Education. Cuba gives us scholarships. We are going to be giving Cuba a few scholarships. We're going to be giving Cuba 10 scholarships. Cuba is also going to be helping us with a program to develop speaking of Spanish as a second language in Barbados. We are going to be lots of collaboration in the health field. We already have Cuban nurses here. We know that we need them going into the future, but a lot of collaboration we're going to see in training our nurses and training doctors in specialties, even in agriculture. We have just launched this community agriculture response and empowerment project where the Ministry of Agriculture is going to be developing agricultural projects in communities, including urban communities, to deal with the rise in the cost of living. Well, Cuba has a lot of expertise in that. For a long time now, Cuba has been developing these urban gardens. So collaboration in that as well. Tourism, the 2 tourism ministries are going to be signing a memorandum of understanding. We're going to look at the possibility of visitors being able to visit both Barbados and Cuba in one trip. Also, we're going to be looking at the possibility of health tourism, of Barbados and Cuba can partner in health tourism. So it's going to be very exciting. This relationship with Cuba is going to add real value to Barbadian society and to Barbados's economy.
Now, listening to it, you use the word relationship. Relationship has to be 50-50. We see the benefits to Barbados and the region. What are the benefits to Cuba from this relationship?
Well, we have recognized that as well, that we have to give. And that is why, for example, we are establishing the scholarship program where we're going to be reciprocating. We're going to actually give Cuban students are going to come to Barbados on scholarship. Similarly, they're going to help us with Spanish as a second language program. We are going to reciprocate with helping them with the teaching of English as a second language in Cuba. So Barbados, for sure, has recognized that it needs to be reciprocal, and we are going to try best that we can within the limits of our resources. At a CARICOM level, one of the things that we are really focusing on to help Cuba with is trying to get that U.S. blockade removed. So, you ask the Cubans, and I have done this, I mean, in a very practical way, even when they're really under serious strain. What can we do to help? What can we give to you? And the answer comes back: help us, just help us to remove that blockade. That is all that we need. We don't need you to, we don't need you to send us food. We don't just help us to remove that blockade. So we are recommitted to doing that. At the summit, Barbados put forward the proposal that October the 6th, the day on which the Cubana terrorist tragedy took place, be designated CARICOM Cuba Day Against Terrorism. That was done. That's the name of that day from now onwards. But then, having done that, then the heads of government followed up and called upon the United States to immediately remove Cuba from this bogus list. They have Cuba on this list of countries that sponsor state terrorism. And in fact, what we are saying to them is Cuba is not any sponsor of state terrorism. Cuba is perhaps the number one victim of state terrorism. So we are committed to helping Cuba get that blockade removed. We had a very moving ceremony at the Cubana Monument immediately after the summit, immediately after designating October 6th CARICOM Cuba Day Against Terrorism. We had this very moving ceremony. Prime Minister Motley spoke, President of Cuba, President of Guyana. 11 of their citizens died in that tragedy, and all of the leaders used that occasion once again to appeal to the United States to let justice and reasonableness prevail and remove these sanctions against Cuba. So that's an area, and the projects that Cuba is helping us with, for example, the Regional School of the Arts, the Center for the Stimulating of development of children with special educational needs. Those are sort of collaborative as well. I mean, the Cuban expertise, but CARICOM financial resources in building out the institutions.
It sounds like a really good partnership. It's exciting times ahead, opportunities for Barbadians to upskill themselves as well from this relationship, and it's going to be fantastic. Now, very briefly, quickly, because we're almost out of time, the colloquium, it obviously offered people a chance to become loquacious, to talk a little bit about what's going on. What are some of the things that came out of that particular colloquium?
Well, the idea of the colloquium really was that we were celebrating a very, very important milestone, 50 years in the relationship, and that we really could not have heads of government, the political class coming together to have summits and meetings, and the civil society was left out. So we said, look, this is an excellent opportunity to parallel what the governments will be doing by bringing together academics, scholars, activists, artists at our university. So we had people coming in from Cuba. We had renowned scholars coming in from other parts of the world, meeting with our scholars here and our activists. And yes, so we reviewed the entire 50-year period, and we ended with a panel that looked forward for the next 50 years? How is this relationship going to be developed? So it was a very rich discussion. Out of it, you had this bringing together of Cuban artists, intellectuals, activists with their peers from across the Caribbean community. And actually, the colloquium ended with the organizers calling for us to look at everything that was said during that day and work out at least a minimum program for collaboration going ahead. So that's work to be done. Some concrete things coming out of the discussions that we can that the civil society organizations and activists can work on together.
Great work. Thank you so much for the comprehensive report, Ambassador. And I look forward to our interactions again next week as we continue our conversations on CARICOM. Ambassador Comissiong, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pearson.
You're very
Wishing
welcome.
you a very wonderful Christmas season.
And you too, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Ambassador David Comissiong, Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM indeed. And so we're looking forward to all of the exciting times in CARICOM now that we know all the big news that's happening from that relationship with Cuba.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.